Yeah, McTaggart, you both for taking a gander through the column inches today. Let's just carry on, shall we, a little bit more on the situation regarding Zelensky, Trump's suggestion that the two sides, Russia and Ukraine, might have to cede some territory to each other. The Zelensky then puts out a long post on Telegram yesterday going, absolutely not, referenced on page, I think, 13 of the Telegraph.
Yeah, so it's quite a consistent line from Zelensky, really. He's always said that he's not going to cede territory to Russia, which you can understand given they've invaded the country and occupied this land. But I think, you know, behind the scenes, it would be interesting to know if there's a slightly different line. Most of the analysts that I'm speaking to now are of the opinion that, you know, whether right or wrong, realistically, Ukraine will probably have to cede something to Russia in order to get a peace deal over the line. There doesn't seem to be much incentive at this point for Putin just to withdraw everything. He's still making gains on the battlefield. The Russian economy is really sort of kitted out to be a wartime economy. So he can sustain this, and there seems to be little incentive for him to do otherwise. And actually, you know, even the soldiers that I'm speaking to on the front lines in Ukraine, I don't know where they stand on this in particular, but they are quite pessimistic about the fact that they are losing a lot of territory right now. You know, they can really see that in front of their eyes. So this is as much, I think, though, a message to Trump, because this has been a consistent thing from Zelensky, because Trump is meeting, of course, with Putin next week in Alaska for these bilateral talks. So Zelensky won't be invited to them. And I think this is Zelensky setting out his stall to make it very clear to both of them what he is or isn't willing to accept. To say to Trump, don't go in there saying we'll make peace if we, you know, get Ukraine to cede a load of territory, because Ukraine won't accept it. So whether there will be wiggle room later down the line, we don't know. But I think it's Zelensky very clearly setting out his stall there.
And Zelensky and Trump's relationship, you think back to, I think, 28th of February, that Oval Office clash, that kind of televised dressing down, and then fast forward to the late Pope's funeral in the Vatican, and those two chairs kind of being hurriedly put together face to face in the corner of the cathedral there, and kind of Macron being pushed to one side and the two of them sitting down, and somehow he's managed to kind of quite adeptly turn around that relationship. And, you know, Trump is all about who he likes and dislikes at the moment, so...
He is, but it's a bit fickle, isn't it? It's sort of ever-changing, and you don't quite know where you stand. And I get the sense, as Molly said, that Zelensky might be forced by Trump to make these unfavourable concessions. But then, as you said, the amazing scene that we saw in the Vatican of them having that sort of love-in right after the extraordinary scene in the White House, yeah, you just can't really keep up with how he feels. I think this meeting, though, with Putin will probably swing him on the other side again.
Trump dances to the beat of his own drum, really, doesn't he? He's a hard man to predict, and he has been fickle, and he has been quite warm towards Putin at times, you know, repeating a lot of the Putin rhetoric around the invasion of Ukraine, even going as far as to blame Kiev for itself being invaded. So I think there have been concerns about his warmth towards Putin, but as you say, a pivot back, I think, towards what some would see as a more sceptical position, and Ukraine will certainly be hoping that he's batting them this time around.
And the bit that always strikes me is you think that Putin's been in power since 2000, 25 years either as president or prime minister for that those 4 years in the middle, and he kind of is so adept at using time. And Western leaders have 4 or 5 year cycles, and Putin and lots of other kind of more dictatorial, certainly autocratic leaders can kind of drag these things out for so long, and can maybe wait until Trump's having a different thought process on another Tuesday.
No, that's a really good point. Or could wait even till after he's left, as you say. So it's a time game as well for the West to force Putin's hand at the moment. But yeah, what concessions are Kiev going to make?
The way that papers go means that we often have kind of interesting segues. I'm going to bring into this conversation now Dame Emma Thompson.
Yeah, this is a bit of a difficult segue to make, so I don't blame you on that. But this is, it does involve Trump. Yeah. So there we go. So apparently Trump asked Dame Emma Thompson out. This is while she was on the 1998 set, 1998 set of her film Primary Colours, which is actually a political film sort of loosely based on Bill Clinton's journey to the White House. But apparently, so she was making these comments at Locarno Film Festival, and apparently Trump finds the number for her trailer, and this is right after she had announced her divorce, and rings her up and says, "Hello, this is Donald Trump." She says, "I thought it was a complete joke. So I asked, how can I help you?" Maybe he needed directions from someone. And he goes, He says, I would like to sort of take you out. And she was like, oh, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. He asked her for dinner and she's like, I don't, it doesn't, I mean, the joke here is that she's been a left-wing sort of activist her entire life. She's a staunch Labour supporter. So this could not be more sort of opposites attract, as the intro suggests. So I don't think she was particularly keen on that. And she just joked yesterday that she could have potentially changed the course of American history.
And I do wonder what a White House would look like under Dame Emma Thompson.
Well, exactly.
Well, the Christmas decorations would be better. Do you remember the ones that kind of that haunting kind of winter wonderland? They've
been a bit rogue in recent years, haven't they?
They have been very rogue indeed. Dame Emma. Interesting little bit of insight there. I love that. I could have changed the course of American history.
Yes,
kind of humble brag, isn't it? Let's move on to tech giants, shall we? Front page 3.
Yes, of the Telegraph. Yeah. This is a story about social media warned that they face fines for being overzealous around limiting online content. And this is quite a break from the rhetoric which we've heard recently, which has mostly been about them curtailing harmful content online. Under the Online Safety Act, they can incur quite large financial penalties if they fail to take down enough content. Now they're being told, don't take down too much. I'm sure if you're a social media boss, with whom I think most people don't have huge amounts of sympathy, they might be thinking, well, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. It's certainly a fine line to tread. So there's been some backlash over websites potentially blocking too much. So this report says that even parliamentary debates around the grooming gangs scandal has been blocked online, which is a sort of overreach. But I think potentially the most relevant bit of this is buried quite far in the report, and it points out that J.D. Vance, of course, Vice President of the US, is planning to sort of warn against this, or has been warning against this within the UK. And I do wonder about the extent to which this is a bit of political play from the UK to say to the US, we are listening and we do value your input. The Trump administration has been quite unusually vocal in saying that it's concerned about free speech within the UK. You don't normally get allies commenting on the internal affairs of another ally. So I wonder about the extent to which, this is a bit of praise to the US, a bit of a nod to what the US want the UK to be doing.
Well, yes, I remember that speech that he made at the Munich Security Conference, J.D. Vance, in which he really hammered home the point to which he really thinks that free speech is under threat here, and particularly right-wing free speech, which is, I think, the point of a lot of this. And, I mean, look, the Act is not designed to censor political debate, so it shouldn't be doing that. And if social media bosses are overreaching, they should be held accountable and fined for that, because it's not the right thing to do. This is designed to protect children's safety first and foremost. So political debate is separate to that.
Yeah, and the internet. And I always think I'm very grateful that I kind of grew up without it, because it's such a hard environment now for children to navigate. Young people, all of us, even adults, in mid-30s to navigate. Let alone if you're 12, 11, 13, 15.
Yeah, and there's such a problem as well with the law being able to keep up with these kind of developments. Exactly. I mean, tech moves famously fast, particularly around things like AI. Those developments are changing constantly, and it is very hard then for the law, which moves comparatively incredibly slowly, to sort of make relevant legislation all the time. So I think it is a really tricky line to tread, and I think they are sort of warning, basically, do so carefully.
Let's move on to kind of the row, the ruckus, the brouhaha, the furore that just doesn't go away.
Furore that does not go away surrounding Senator Barlow, yes. So this newest piece in the Mail on Sunday is suggesting that Harry wants to still be very much involved in Lesotho and Botswana, helping the children with HIV and, in general, helping the poverty levels that children face there. This is, of course, after he had to resign, along with his co-founder, Prince Siso, from Senator Barlow, along with a huge amount of the Board of Trustees, after this very public spat with the chairwoman, Sophie Chandauka, which has honestly been very bitter. And I think that the main point to say, before we go into it really in detail, is that this has only really negatively impacted the children that the charity is trying to help, because now there's a funding crisis within this charity. And I will mention that Harry did donate over $1 million from book proceeds in 2023. So he was a massive donator. He would go there, he would really support it. And this has been described as his life's work by his closest sort of aides and allies. And he's devastated. And same with the prince that he co-founded this with, who's a friend of his. And they founded this charity in 2006 in the memory of their mothers. and their mother's legacy, particularly Princess Diana. And this very public row in which Sophie Chandauka has accused some of the board of bullying, harassment, misogynoir, discrimination against black women. It has really just not worked in anyone's favour. She remains, so Harry can no longer go back. So this is all about him trying to establish a way in there and to keep helping his work in the region, which he's so distraught to have lost.
And I think your point there also, you know, you look at Trump's tariffs, Lesotho, potentially one of the highest tariff nations, the textile industry there, 12,000 people in a country of 2 million looking at risk of losing their jobs kind of immediately. You know, rows like this do not help the people that need to be helped.
No,
who are facing even more pressure than they were previously.
Well, exactly. The internal workings of the charity are probably, I mean, very difficult right now because who knows how many internally are against what Sophie Chandauka was saying and the allegations that she made. The Charity Commission's investigation, which came back this past week, basically allowed her to remain in position, which means, as I said, that Harry and Prince Sisu and the rest of the board will not be coming back. But it's still a leadership in crisis, and it's a lack of direction. And you know, one just thinks, well, who has this benefited? And it certainly has not made Harry look very good either.
No, another challenge for the royal family more broadly as well. Plenty more to get through in the next hour. Do stay with us after this short break. All the day's headlines coming to you on Sky News.
Hear that whistle and that crack.